right, good evening everyone and welcome to the school committee meeting of September 15th, 2021. As we start all meetings, if we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we do have an agenda and we do have our numbering sequence, and as with best laid plans, sometimes things change a little bit. So Chris Scriven is joining us. He wasn't planning on attending the meeting tonight. However, he is going to join us for a little bit. Hopefully he does not get into too much trouble with his wife. Sorry, Chris. But we do have one item on the agenda pertaining to the unpaid bills from FY21. And based upon the guidance that Mr. Stanbrook provided us, that does require a 9/10 vote. And Mr. Small will not be joining us tonight. So we're going to try, at least given an opportunity, we'll have 9 of us. The vote goes where the vote goes. But we're going to try and actually take that one out of order while Chris is on the line, and then he can go his separate ways. So John, we're going to take that out of order. If you can talk to us about the bills, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
John, speak up as loud as you can, okay?
Okay. I closed the books for fiscal year 21 on August 31st. That gave the vendors that we have 2 months to get in all of their outstanding invoices to us. We paid all the outstanding invoices that we received, and we encumbered all of the other invoices that we knew about that we hadn't received yet. But since then, the invoices that you have in front of you have been received that were not encumbered. The Frank Rounds invoice that's in there is from fiscal year 19, but the rest of them are from fiscal year 21. These are unpaid bills from prior fiscal years. If you've been to town meeting, you may have seen this. Almost all town meetings have some sort of article to pay these bills. So they can't be paid without committee approval, as you can't use one fiscal year's funds to pay for another fiscal year's expenses. This rule only applies to appropriated funds only. That's the stuff in the budget. It doesn't apply to capital projects or revolving funds, so it's just the budget stuff. So there are 8 of them on the sheet that you have in front of you. One from Frank Rounds Company for $10,223.77. One for Evergreen Center Incorporated for $9,456.60. 4 for Old Colony Lock and Safe, $397.40, $159.35, $135.36, and $105. The Town of Whitman Department of Public Works for $495, and Plastic Card Systems Incorporated for $2,234. The total is $23,206.48. So, and where the funding source for these would be from the fiscal year 22 budget in the column that has funding sources on your sheet, different line items that would come from that. So that's pretty much it. These are unpaid bills that are outstanding and waiting to be paid. If the chair believes it's in order, I'd ask the committee to entertain a motion to pay these unpaid bills from our prior fiscal year out of the fiscal year general fund appropriations budgets as listed on the document that you have before you. That's it.
Someone would like to make that motion?
Motion that we pay the unpaid bills out of current monies as directed by the finance director.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Questions for John? Don? Or Steve? You made the motion, so Steve.
Well, I just want to know the, without saying anything wrong, but the Rounds one, I know that we had brought that to a certain point. Did we find resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
We owe the service.
So that was, okay.
Correct.
All right, so that's been taken care of, all right. And if you said it, John, already, and I was still opening my folder, and I apologize, we don't usually have so many. Is it just the transition and so forth time, or was it that these were lost with something, or aside from the Rounds bill?
I don't know why you haven't had unpaid bills in the past. I
Okay,
can't answer that question. I don't know.
Okay.
That's what these are. So.
all right, very good.
Don?
I had the same question as Mr. Boyce.
That's a question we're looking into, just because John came up with this and he's not sure where they have been in the past. so.
Oh, no, I was asking about
Oh,
Frank
rounds.
Rounds,
Okay,
the
I thought you were following
FY19
me.
expense.
But we're still looking into why, and I don't have an answer for that.
Oh, actually, would you mind giving some context around that, at Frank Rounds, the FY19, just so we can understand?
No, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
So basically, what took place with Frank Rounds is that, yes, the work was done. However, the invoices reflected different schools than where the work was done. So in the confusion of, we said, no, this couldn't happen at this school for the plan because they didn't have that piece of equipment. The Frank Rounds people had changed how they inventory. And sort of what took place was they used to give us itemized inventories and smaller bills for each school where everything happened. What they did in this one was give us a larger bill, but they used things that only took place at the high school to put in that larger bill. So we were saying, well, what happened was like, no, they were at like the Conley School at that time doing this work. So everybody was up and up, everybody was on board. When they traced it all back, it was actually a woman upstairs in our office and two people who were at the Frank Rounds place who actually pieced all together what took place from before they merged their inventory system or their billing system. So we found out we were in arrears, so we needed to pay it, and that's why.
Beth, did you have a question?
Yep.
Any other questions? I know I briefly spoke to Mr. Stanbrook about changes in process, and this is kind of different for us, so I think in the spirit of process improvement, whether it's setting expectations with the vendors to hopefully get those bills in on time, which is always helpful. But I know in my professional experience, we deal with the same thing. We close the fiscal year, and then you always get that sometimes issue. So if there aren't any other questions, then I'll open it up to a vote, which will be a roll call vote. So we'll just go around. Actually, Chris, I'll start with you. Hopefully you can still hear us. Chris?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Mike?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So that is 9-0-1, which the vote carries. Chris, I know you got to go. Are you hanging up?
I am. Thank
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Chris.
Thank you.
We'll get back to regular agenda.
Yep, we'll now get back to the regular agenda, so, and we will not have to do roll call votes because Mr. Scriven has told us he's hung up. So the first item we have on the agenda is public comment, so we are allocating some time for that. I see some folks here. Is anyone here for public comment? Alvin, if you could just state your name, address, and if you could, we're shooting for around a few minutes or so.
Hi, I'm John Galvin, High Street in Whitman. At the last meeting of this committee took a vote of significant line item transfers to balance the fiscal 21 budget. $3.7 million to be precise. Last year at this time, you also took a similar vote, line item transfers to balance the budget for fiscal year 20. $3.1 million transferred at that time. This year, $3.7 million is over 6% of the budget. So that means that at the end of the year, this committee reappropriated 6% of the budget. One other thing I did, and I've actually forwarded that recently to the superintendent, the business manager, and the chair, is take an analysis between the two line items transfers. So basically comparing fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21 line item transfers. What I found was simply mind-bending. The amount of line items in one year that had a significant deficit, the next year had a significant overage. Some of the line items were $1 million difference between one year to the other. With the advent of the newly created subcommittee for budgets and the hiring of a new business manager, I certainly hope that it's time for the school committee to really take a look at how they prepare their budget. And honestly, starting from the ground up. Because to see that kind of variance from year to year and to have that amount of money transferring at the end of the year, there's definitely some serious need to review the way they're going. So I'm not asking a question or anything, just making a statement, and I hope that the subcommittee and Mr. Stanbrook will, take a strong look at, a different way of how the budget is prepared. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Calvin. Did you just send an email or?
About an hour ago.
Okay. So I think, again, we're here to listen, so that's something that we can certainly look at. We can put on an agenda, we can talk about. I know there was some additional data points shared, so thank you for the comments. And we can look at circling back on those. Any other public comments? Okay. All right. Hearing none, we'll close public comments, and we will move on to the student advisory report. She's coming.
Mr. Moriarty said,
She's right there. Oh yeah, she's right there. She's hiding in the back. If you could introduce yourself for the new members of the committee, and feel free.
Good evening. My name is Anna Flynn, and I'm a senior here at Whitman-Hanson. I've been welcomed here this evening to give a voice to the student body. I have heard from several of my peers that the transition to the school year has been overwhelming yet exciting. Unfortunately, for some, including myself, it has been a little frustrating to have to get used to the great amount of people in the halls and classrooms. On a more positive note, this also means that there are more opportunities for face-to-face learning and getting to socialize with friends and classmates. I'm happy to say that the club rally has brought some freshmen to get more involved in extracurriculars. A handful of freshmen have started new sports teams, which is always thrilling to see a growth in participation here. I know a lot of people are looking forward to school dances and events such as the fall rally in a more normal 2021 to 2022 school year. A lot of students have been discussing the mask mandate and how it is affecting their academic performance. Some see it as annoying, while others see it as a chance to get to work with others and be able to come to the school building in person. In addition, studying with a laptop rather than pen and paper has been a hassle for the great majority of students within the last school year. We are all thankful that there is a waiver now so individuals with their own laptops do not have to utilize the school-issued ones. Switching to the topic of lunch, I stand with the idea that all students are delighted that we are all allowed to sit at a normal lunch table with our friends. This past year has reminded us of how important the little things are in life, and the opportunities the school year has already offered has shown us just that. I hope as the school year keeps going, students and teachers, alongside faculty and staff, have a year filled with positive memories and experiences. I wish you all a happy school year. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you for coming. Anyone have any questions of Anna before we let her go? Don?
welcome and thank you for coming back. I heard you gave a wonderful speech on opening day, so thank you.
Thank you.
You refer to hearing from other peers in the school, and I'm wondering how you get feedback from other students. Is it via a platform, or do you have any plans this coming year to get student feedback to share with the committee? Because I really appreciate what you do share, and thank you very much.
I talk to a lot of people on my team because I do cross country and track, and I'm also part of lots of clubs and societies, so I talk to a lot of people throughout the day.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
So you do it like the traditional before, you don't have this crazy social media account where everyone follows. You actually talk to people. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Would you just talk a little bit about the club rally? Because that was something new this year. And what was your takeaway from that?
Well, we had a club rally where everyone went to the gym, and Dr. Jones introduced different clubs, and the advisors went up there, and some students did too. And they talked, I think it was 30 clubs or something like that they introduced, and lots of the freshmen on the cross country team, they were all excited that they saw all the different clubs, and they all said they were going to join a few, and how all their friends were going to, and they were pretty excited about it. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
For sharing that.
Thank you. All right, we'll keep plowing forward here. So the next item we have are the meeting minutes of August 18th, 2021.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, so this is not a roll call vote. So seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. And we are going to pass over the meeting minutes of August 25th. and we'll move on to opening of schools.
Thank you, Chris. So opening of schools, as we know, a couple weeks ago, September 1st, brought kids in. No real issues with opening. Lots of, as I said to folks, happy eyes. We couldn't see smiles, but kids, you could tell how excited they were to be in school. Same with teachers. A couple of hiccups with transportation, as expected on the first couple of days of school, but nothing critical as far as opening. And I'm going to jump right into COVID protocol around opening of school and where we're at right now. So we all know we're under a mask mandate from the commissioner, from DESE, as he has stated through October 1st, depending on a vaccine percentage of 80%. Frustrating for me in reporting to the committee. That's the extent of the information that I have to share with you about the vaccine mandate and what 80% is. There are a lot of us guessing to say, is it by school? Is it by district? Is it by teachers? Is it by community? We don't have that information. What I will share with you is, and on your sheet, I got this today from Whitman, it's the vaccination percentage for your two communities. So I'll just read out our 12 to 15-year-olds in Hanson right now. I have a 30%, excuse me, where am I? I have a 32 or 38% vaccination rate in Hanson, from fully vaccinated for 12 to 15-year-olds. In Hanson, 16 to 19-year-olds, it's 61%. In Whitman, our 12 to 15-year-olds is 47%. And in Whitman, our 16 to 19-year-olds is 58%, fully vaxxed. If the commissioner holds true to the 80%, in our communities, we're not taking the masks off at this point. This is information that I got from Whitman Board of Health today. So you'll see, I just wanted the committee to see the ranges of people and where the vaccinations are in the community. I can't speak detail to it because I got it today and I wasn't able to ask Karen any questions, but I wanted to share with you, the committee, where we're at, because primarily we're not going to meet before this mandate might change. And again, I'm extremely frustrated because I don't have any information to share with the community. I think out there in social media world and in our media world, the commissioner said 80% if your communities are vaccinated, and I don't have any specs to give people. I don't know what we're shooting for. I know we're shooting for 80%. I know both communities have encouraged people to get vaccinated. We don't have a vaccination for our under 12 yet, although I have heard to be cautiously optimistic prior to Halloween now. Well, what does that mean? And where can we dispense that? But I will share with the community as soon as I get an update from the department as far as what does this mean about a percentage. And I know this is a volatile topic within our community, and I empathize with folks who are on both sides of the issue. This is a mandate, and I was asked the question, why do I have to follow the mandate? Is it just about funding? And we have to follow the mandate from the commissioner. You folks are my bosses, the community is, but the department oversees all school districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and our funding does come from the state and from the department, and we're funded on almost 50%. So it is important that we follow the mandates and what the department sends us forward. So that's where we are with vaccinations. I wish I had more information to share, and I will get it out to the community as soon as I have that information. And if we have to have a meeting before that, we will. But again, it's been crickets from Malden since that mandate went out. And I know I'm not the only superintendent on the South Shore, probably in the Commonwealth, that's a little frustrated because we have people that are nervous, anxious on both sides of the table about this. And I know kids are. When I was a kid and I said, hey, I had to reach this goal, and then the goal post change or the end line changes, it can be frustrating. And I know a lot of our high school kids, you see a percentage of high school kids that are vaccinated, and they're looking forward to taking their masks off. I'll just take any questions about the vaccine that I can try to answer for you before I move on to where we're at in town with positivity rates. So I also gave you a document that I got from DPH today, up through 9/9. It's just a handout here, just showing where your positivity rates are in Whitman and in Hanson. It's not specific by kids. And I will share with you, we're not seeing transmissions within the schools. We are not. We are seeing students that might have gotten it And it's coming from home, and it's coming from outside of school. We are still close, having the close contact rules within school, so some kids are quarantined, but we're not seeing the transmissions at all from student to student. They're quarantining, they're coming back negative when they're testing. But you will see there is an increase in both communities of the positivity rate. The state has not come up with the colors that they had last year at this time, you know, the red, yellow, green, whatever. This is all I'm getting, and I'm not getting it off DPH. Nobody's sending it to me. This is just Whitman Board of Health providing it to Lisa, because they speak on a daily basis, and I asked her to give me as much information as I could to share with the committee. So you will see the uptick in the past 14 days. It's up. They're testing more, but the positivity rate is up in both of our communities. Just as a, for instance, as far as positive cases, Lisa gave me this on Friday. Positive cases since September 1st, I asked from the start of school. The high school has had 2, the middle school has had 3, Hanson Middle School had 4, 6 other students tested positive in the few days prior to, and I think the committee was informed of the Hanson football team and some issues there. Duval had 3, Conley had 0, Indian had 0, and the pre-K had 2. Again, no transmissions between students. It's coming from the outside. A lot of these students potentially caught it from their parents. Update from Lisa, because we're talking about test and stay, and this letter went out to all parents today about the testing procedures. Another frustration from superintendents, including myself, is the fact that we were ready to go with tests day 1 and we didn't have them. They came in last week. However, the training that Lisa was supposed to attend this week was canceled. So she's trying to self-train, and it's now a computer program on how to enter the data. So she's looking at it herself, but we were given the go-ahead to start with the CIC Health. Tests were delivered on Friday the 10th. She was given the Crush the Curve software access on Thursday, but hasn't been trained, and the meeting on Friday the 10th was canceled due to the program coordinator wasn't able to train on the software yet. She emailed the coordinator on Monday for an estimated timeline. Today they got back, she's trying to self-train. And she also reported the state is starting to collect data today on our positive cases that they're going to be reporting out to the communities. The test and stay program, again, it's somewhat confusing for people outside. Students can only be tested if they are a close contact within school. If you play Pop Warner and come to school, I can't test you. But if you're a close contact within school from a classroom, I can test you. And the test and stay is a test in the office, 5 consecutive days. So if it's a Thursday, Friday, it's Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If the student is asymptomatic and tests negative, you can report back to school, and you don't have to go home for a quarantine. So it's different than the test outside of school. This will help close our gap in quarantines. I can speak from experience. Last Thursday, my daughter was a close contact of a student from September 2nd. We found out on September 8th. We had her tested. Luckily, she was going to the doctors that day, and she tested negative, so she could go to school on the 9th. However, the quarantine would have been over on Sunday because we found out 7 days later. Test and stay would have allowed her to just test in school, and not have to go to the doctors. Hopefully, we're up and running, and if parents sign off on this, there's still going to be a phone call home if a student comes down to the nurse's office. But parents have this, if they can sign off and they approve the test and stay, we're going to follow, we're running with it. We are not doing pool testing. We didn't do it last year. We're not doing it this year. It is listed on the form because Desi said specifically don't change our form, but we said we are not doing pool testing, we're doing the test and stay and routine COVID checks. So that's the update on COVID from the lead nurse. We seem to be handling situations well as far as masks in school. There are some issues in the high school, and I think it's kids just pushing down here and having to be reminded to pick them up. Traditional teenage behavior, I would say. It's been addressed at the high school from the principal to the staff members. I haven't heard of much issue at the other schools. We still provide masks to students that need them. I did clarify with some folks what a mask is through our mask policy update, or through our mask update. When we did it again in August, it's a mask like this. Gaiters are fine. It can't be a mask with holes or severely worn. So, and we will provide those to students that need them. The other piece of COVID, and I'll take questions after, the other piece of COVID affects athletics and after-school activities. We don't have any buses. We have a severe shortage of drivers right now. So last year, when we had busing issues and COVID issues, you allowed me to grant athletics students and their parents to drive them to and from games. We are in that same situation now where students and/or parents are driving to games if they can't get a bus. And it's not a fault of Bob Rogers. Karen Villanueva, our transportation director, mentioned it to me. We're lucky we're getting bus drivers to bus our kids to school. After school and field trips are going to be severely limited by the amount of drivers that are there. They are struggling to get people to work. The buses are there, the drivers are not. I inquired today about potentially the opportunity to lease a bus for us for athletics and train some of our own folks to be able to drive that. We looked at 15-passenger vans to potentially purchase. They're still not deemed by the state as transportation devices for kids. But I want you to know, as parents might complain, games might shift because we can't get a bus. Kids might be, upperclassmen might be driving, parents might be driving to and from. There is a severe shortage that is not impacting us during the day yet, but it's impacting us at night. And it's all under the COVID piece that we're dealing with right now. Excuse me. Any questions on COVID and opening? Michelle?
So as far as the test and stay program, if you're in close contact and you're vaccinated, does any of this apply?
So if you're vaccinated, what I'm understanding, in your close contact, you don't have to test.
You don't have to test at all?
That's correct.
Or quarantine?
If we know that you're vaccinated. And
Okay.
we can't ask for that. So what I also said at one meeting is, parents, if you want us to know so we don't have to close contact your child, let your school nurse know that your child's been vaccinated. So if they come up as a close contact, they've been vaccinated, they're okay.
Okay, and then I have another part. If you're like at the elementary school level or the middle school level and your child's not vaccinated, if you say your child comes home and then the school nurse says, oh, your child was in close contact, do you send them to school the next day? And then as soon as they get to school, they test and wait? And then what if they're positive? Then you have to go get them, or do you keep them home?
George, what were you going to say?
If they're asymptomatic, they come back to school.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then they go to school and then they can test and then.
Correct.
So no matter, they can go to school and then test, and if they test positive, then they leave. But they can
Correct.
always go to school if they're asymptomatic.
If the school nurse, I mean, right now, we don't have the tests.
Okay.
So the protocol will let parents know specifically what happens.
Okay.
We don't have the tests right now, so we have kids that are quarantining, that are asymptomatic, that are, right now, the standard is 5 days, and then you can test. So again, I use my daughter, I got the call Thursday. They traced it back to the Thursday prior to, so it was past the 5 days. She could test that day, or the principal said she could quarantine until Sunday, return to school on Monday.
Okay.
But there's still a 5-day wait. That's why it's imperative that we get this test and stay. So if a child comes down to the office who's a close contact, or if the nurse calls, send the child the next morning for the test and stay. And
Got
the other piece is, we expect all of that in the morning, so we've hired an additional nurse to
Okay.
travel with Lisa to do all these tests
Okay,
in the
got it.
morning. So it might not be, as, high school starts, we're all on a different schedule, so the nurses will go to each school and test those children, and then send them home, or send them back to class.
Okay.
It's a good program.
Yeah.
Once we can get it going,
Sure.
And it's disappointing that we're not ready to go.
Yeah.
But and then clarifying too, and I'll address it, that there was, I think our lead nurse did an outstanding job with the football incident or issues in Hanson. The Hanson football team was quarantined, and questions came to Lisa and to DPH around the quarantine and why. And Lisa said, well, this is our protocol, this is where we're at. And Hanson Board of Health overrules us. So there was some back and forth, and I know Hanson is making some adjustments in their protocols when it comes outside of school. And I know Lisa and our staff has been trying to assist Hanson to make sure that if it's kid-related, school will have an input and say in the process of the quarantine. So, but clarifying again, if somebody's son is out on the football field on, her daughter is cheerleading or gymnastics on Saturday, and they become a close contact because Board of Health calls them and says you're a close contact from an outside event, it's not a test and stay, that's a 5-day quarantine.
But can I ask, well, like, and it might be in some of that stuff, but maybe I'm incorrect in thinking or believing that the test and stay is to keep kids in school so that we don't have
Yep.
40 kids quarantining. So why can't that out-of-school contact? Is it because there's not enough tests for that to happen?
That's a very good question.
And I know
We were
it's
just
not-
told no.
Okay, so there's no-
So I think once it's known, once it's up and running, I have a feeling that if it's appealed to say any kid that is a close contact by a Board of Health, the Board of Health can either have a test and stay or the schools can provide
It
that.
just seems contrary to
I agree
the
with you.
purpose of the program. I have another question about active cases. So last year, you would send like emails to the community. Are you planning to do that this year?
Yes. So we sent our first data to the state. Now I'm going to start issuing it out.
I just second Jeff on Lisa Tobin and the school nurses just being unbelievably professional in the last couple of weeks. I experienced some of what happened, and they were awesome.
Good. It's good to hear.
Thank you.
They're working very hard, and they've been met with some outstanding people in the community and some very angry parents, and it's been very difficult for them. So I appreciate that feedback publicly for them. They do a great job.
One follow-up question or clarification on if you get the call from the school nurse at night that your elementary or middle school is a close contact, we're putting them on the bus because DESE has determined that bus ridership is not a close contact.
Correct.
Because the windows are open and in air. So that is okay for them to take that bus, come in, even though they've been deemed close contact. Just wanted
And
to
they're
sort
on their
of
assigned seat,
communicate
yep.
that as well. The bus is okay, not close contact, and then they'll have that
Correct.
test.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm just very happy that everything is, I mean, you hear of schools that, you know, there's groups of kids that are being sent out and so forth, and what the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and everyone on the faculty have done just to make this really work for the kids and probably give them that stability that, you know, we've been over the rough roads. There might have been little certain things here and there, but I'm very happily surprised and happy at the same time of the outcome. So thank you very much, Jim.
People are working very hard, and as they always do.
We'll knock on those wooden desks.
I just have one other question, and it's kind of a clarifying question as well. So the test and stay, parents of the community, we received the emails today to consent. So if a parent doesn't consent, then their child just has to quarantine, correct? What is the plan for students who have to quarantine? So they would be out of school 7 days, 5 days
5
probably?
days, and then could
Is
test,
there, so there's no remote learning this year?
Nope.
There's no live streaming into classrooms at the high school. There's no remote teachers at the elementary, middle school, right? Okay, so there isn't really, you know, it's just the teacher putting stuff on Google Classroom and doing what they can.
The commissioner has asked us to treat those students like an ill child.
Okay,
So if you had chickenpox back in the day, you'd be out for a couple of days. That's how, at this point, that's how we're treating that.
okay, thank you.
Moving on, I think I'm in the right number, right?
Yeah.
We talked last week about the annual agenda listing. I just wanted to highlight that in December, after some feedback, we're going to update our summer programs and start talking about summer programs in the winter. So I think it'll be a good idea for us to start as a committee. This is what we might be offering, get some information from the community about what's going to take place in the summer, so I'm not presenting that in June. We'll present it again in May or June, but we'll have an upstart in December. I already did, okay. So I'm going to transition to opening. So, let me see. I have paperwork all over the place here, so bear with me.
Yeah, we have a lot of reports. So
Yeah.
where do you want to go first?
So I'm going to do opening class size.
Okay.
Okay? So, class size, homeschool, school choice. So I'm going to talk about right now homeschool and school choice. and just simple enrollment. So I sent you, folks, just an idea. In 1920, we had 35 homeschool kids. 1920, we had 58 school choice kids coming into the district. In 2021, we had 93 homeschool students, and in 2021, 50 school choice students. In 21-22, I am up to 65 homeschool kids and 50 school choices. That's as of 12/51 today. So a pretty accurate, up-to-date number for homeschool and school choice. We're still choicing in kids from all over the South Shore, which is a good thing. We are sending out 36 students for school choice. I don't know where they are yet. Actually, I don't know where they're going, but we are sending out. We have 50 coming in and 36 going out. One of the benefits of school choice for us is not only, again, when I spoke about grades 9 and 10, and then keeping students within the district. I have received a few calls in the past 2 weeks about parents who have had to move out of both Whitman and Hanson and have asked to keep their kids here. And thankfully, the committee has allowed me to do that because the students are connected, and either by something not super terrific happening at home, parents have had to leave and they wanted continuity for their children. If we didn't have school choice for those students staying here, they would have to transition to another school, sometimes after a traumatic event in their home or, economically, socially, whatever. So I appreciate that. And it also adds to the cost of the kid. We can balance it out a little. In 2012-13, we had more school choice coming in. As you see, we have 36 kids going out. I think that's something we're going to dive in deeper about the why. And it's always been a question about full day K and where they go starting out. And it's something that we will look into and have more information as we matriculate through this school year. But those are those numbers on homeschool and school choice. Just as an overview, in the high school, I gave you an enrollment update by building and by grade, so it's self-explanatory where we're at. As far as enrollment, our enrollment is decreasing across the district. Folks are not having 5 or 6 kids anymore, but it seems like it's after we get through grade, Hanson, it's kind of leveling off after we get through 8th grade this year to almost 100, 105, 106 kids per grade in Hanson. It used to be 126. In Whitman, it seems to level off at grade 6. And if you look at Conley and Duval's numbers, you're looking at the 150s and the 160s. Our 8th grade class is 191 right now. So we are looking at a decreasing enrollment. But if it's leveling off like this, and as we looked at the NESDEC information that we got last year, it helps us to properly plan a little bit more for that. The thing that was surprising to me, and I sent this to you also, is the total enrollments from July and August. I know we talk in June about class size and what's it going to look like in the future, but just specifically this year, our registrar took in 152 students in July and August, and I broke it up by building. And then since September started, we've had 15 new students with 10 pending registrations, so that's another 25 students. So over the summer, since we closed in June, we brought in 175 kids district-wide. So when we talk about numbers in June, I can give you class sizes in June and July, and I even looked at class sizes in August, and they were very different. And I think that's a trend that we're probably going to see. This is the most we've seen in a while, but we've seen a spike in enrollment. One of the areas that we did have transition where we had 30-plus English language learner students move in over the summer. We are not at 100 in the district because we would have been with these 30 new, but some of our students are testing out. So they take a test, they flip out, they take a test with our EL coordinator, and they don't require the services once they meet a certain matriculation in language learning. But we did have 30 new students in here, and you're going to see in my goals, part of one of my goals is looking at programs for all of our kids. So that's where we at with enrollment, and I will dive a little bit into class sizes now. We worked very hard. This committee has worked extremely hard and diligent to try to lower class size in the district. And I'm pleased in the class size sheet this year that in our elementary schools, we have some really good balance, especially in our earlier grades. I'll just run down, simply like in Duval, the first grade average class size is 16 and a half, 16, 16, 17, 17. We're at the 16s and 18s at Duval as a top class size. At Conley, we are up a little bit in the upper grades, but if you see the trends in the lower grades, those are going to balance out in the next 2 to 3 years. Indian Head, we're pretty consistent at 100 kids per class or per grade. We did move some things around, so you're looking at a class size of 23, 22, 20, and 19. Hanson Middle School is pretty average at 21, 18, somewhere around there, so you're seeing an average class size of 20. Whitman Middle School, the only bubble is in the 8th grade. Everything else is in the low 20s. And the high school class sizes, as we look at, I looked at it with Dr. Jones, you're looking at some really good class sizes of an average of 23. You're looking at 17 in some areas. You're looking at 30 in our foreign language, in some foreign language classes. Our French classes are pretty low, and our Spanish classes, especially Spanish 1 and 2, are pretty high. So it might be we might need some relief there, and we'll see where we're at. And PE that used to be in the 40s and 50s consistently now have a couple of bubbles, but we're in the 30s, which is manageable for a high school PE class. So thanks to the towns for supporting our budgets over the past couple of years. We have had some retirements, and we've been able to creatively finance some of these positions. When an expensive teacher retires, we can hire 2. So we've been creative in how to lower class size to the best of our abilities. And it seems to have come true this year, even with the higher enrollments the added students over the summer. You'll see the full day K numbers and the half day K numbers. And currently, right now, I have 4 kids on the Conley waiting list. I have a spot in Duval and I have a spot in Indian Head, but the parents have chosen to stay and wait at Conley if potentially somebody moves or drops out. But I only have 4 students on a wait list right now. But looking at your half day K numbers will give you an idea of what we might need next year if we move to full day K. So it's just good information for you folks to have. And that's another piece of my goals this year that we'll be talking about full day K. So enrollment for me on the whole looks very good, and most of our academic classes, our related arts classes bubble in certain spots. We made some accommodations at Whitman Middle to make sure we had some good class sizes, but on the whole, I'm pleased with where we're at with our sizes within the district.
So we can open up to questions. I think, Jeff, just one I have for you, and I know there's a lot of information that you just covered and we have in our packets, and so if you don't have this one, we can always follow up next meeting. But kindergarten, can you give us an update? Because I know we had that conversation around like wait lists.
Yeah.
And where did we end up with that?
So I just said that.
Okay.
Four kids
Right,
kids on the Conley wait list, and I have a spot. So I have an opening at Duval, and I have an opening at Indian Head.
Sorry,
So it's
I
just
missed that one.
no
My bad.
worries at all. I wouldn't listen to me after a while either.
No,
So-
I thought I got it all, but I missed that one.
So, but that's it. And I think people have moved around, and I think some people that might have been on the wait list have just, decided they'd rather just do half day K. We were at about 6 or 7 a little while ago, but now it's just 4.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
I have a question. And this is kind of on that. So there are 4 kids for kindergarten at Conley, and the 2 full-day K sizes are 22 and 21. And at Indian Head, you have 2 classes of 23. So is it a space issue that you can't make one of those classes 23?
At Conley, yes.
Like there
Yes.
are not enough desks?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just not enough space. It's
Yeah.
really, the rooms at Duval and the rooms at Indian Head are bigger.
Okay.
They're much bigger. And that's an issue moving forward, is
Okay.
where we place those students.
Thanks.
Other questions? Don?
Thank you so much for the staff. I guess thank you to the towns, right,
Yeah.
for funding the staff and the budget the last 2 years, because
Absolutely.
it shows in these class sizes throughout, in pointing out the 8th grade at Whitman Middle's high, and that's, the enrollment is 191, and the following grade is 158, I believe. So, yeah, it's 30 more kids in that Whitman Middle 8th grade, and, you know, I don't know that there's a solution you can do for that. That's just nature of enrollment numbers.
And if you look at,
Yeah.
in August, I had 12 more move into Whitman. So that was a lower number. We were looking at 178 in July, and in August, 12 students moved into Whitman Middle in 8th
that
grade.
grade
In
alone?
grade 8. So that's the challenge of this, is as we go forward, and I think the community, we talked scheduling in our subgroup a little bit, the challenge of scheduling, you make a great schedule, and all of a sudden you get 12 new enrollments, and where do they go? And you think you have 20, and all of a sudden you're at 24, and it's the balance, so.
Right. So one other thing I noticed on the class size is the related arts. It stood out to me, band specifically, in Whitman Middle. I actually asked superintendent to clarify the number because 7th grade band at Whitman Middle was missing from the report. And he confirmed that there's no students enrolled. And 6th grade band at Whitman Middle is 0, and was 4 in 8th grade. So that stood out to me just as far as participation by the student themselves. That's not that we're not offering it. You know, it's available. So I think I'm talking more bigger picture on our related arts, and we have that discussion about future programs and improving that. I know the Hanson Middle School Band has a total of 23 kids in their 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So my question is really, because I don't know, district-wide, where do we begin to introduce students to band and instruments at the elementary level? And is there a cost to that? Because I know we have art in the elementary school, and we have wellness, and we do have music, but it sounds like music is essentially singing, you know, and talking about music, which is one medium of that. Another medium of music actually is playing an instrument or learning it. And while we have art class and they're using paintbrushes and doing all that, they're not just looking at paintings and evaluating paintings. In art class, they're doing. So that's something that this sort of brought on that idea. So I don't know if you could just help
Sure, do you want to
share
jump
some
in?
more information
Yep.
on the
Sure, so.
what offerings of
Yep.
the district.
So what happens at elementary music is that, yes, it's a lot of singing, it's a lot of what is notes, what is the introduction, and usually at each school, the music teacher sort of delves into an after-school program for their likes. In the past, we've had music teachers at the elementary school who ran a guitar club. At the past, we have the woman who's at the Conley School who does beginning piano for the Conley students. But a lot of that is dependent on, hey, what are the skills of the music teacher have to incorporate it, and it usually becomes an after-school activity. If you remember a few years ago, we used to have 5th grade, part-time 5th grade instrumental band teacher. Due to budget cuts, we moved on from that person, but I am happy to say, because I've been in the background working with both the high school gentlemen, is that we will be offering again, hopefully for the beginning in October, before school band for those students who are interested. This will be, the district will pick up the cost, transportation, parents will have to get them, but it's also going to be done by Ms. Lazier, who is the Duval School music teacher. So there will be 5th grade band at Hanson Middle School before school, there will be at Conley School, and there will be at Duval. The fact that it's the Duval music teacher makes things a lot easier, but that is coming. I'm working with the teacher now, and her passion just happens to be band. She likes band. I mean, that's
I hope a music teacher would like that.
yeah, but some don't. Like, some are like just into like jazz, some are just into strings, some are just into music as chorus. So this just happened that this worked out. So we will be having that. She so far met with myself, she's met with Mr. Legg and Mr. Dondero here at the high school, and she's now putting together the times that work for her schedule and the school schedule so that she can get that information out to parents. You will remember that when we had this a few years ago, they even put on like a 5th grade band concert, and we had up to about, at one point I think we had about 65 students who were in it in 5th grade, and that's why our numbers were higher as we go through. You'll see attrition, especially at Whitman Middle, is that the only remaining people from when the former person was here to do it are in 8th grade. And actually, I think those are siblings of other students who were in the high school band who had it. So we are making inroads. I know that we've talked next year as to what we can do as far as having a specific person who just caters to band at the elementary and middle, but that is part of the discussions that this committee has. But Ms. Lazier, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Ashley's her first name, is going to be doing at least before-school band again for grade 5. And so she'll do the instrument introduction and all of that, and then take it from there. So more information will be coming.
Thank you. If I may, a couple of questions. Is there a need for instruments? Can we put an appeal out for anyone who wants to donate instruments? What is the equipment that we have?
I'm sure. I took piano lessons when I was 7. That's about the extent of my musical upbringing, so I'm not sure. But I know that she has already contacted. We have a company where, like, they will come in, demonstrate, you see what you like, you play it, and then there's a rental piece that goes with it. That's what we've done for years at all levels. So I can ask her, and we'll see where we go.
Okay, because the rental piece can be an obstacle for some families even, $20 even, you know, it's just, I don't have it, can be the response. And is there a stipend involved with this? I know at the high school we have coaches that get stipends.
Yes.
Is that something our committee needs to approve? And I would love to talk about more opportunity for stipends if there are teachers.
I know that there will be a stipend attached to it. I've spoken to the veteran music teachers about, you know, what do we get for doing chorus after school and those things. It's part of, you know, be part of a contract. So
Prior to cutting the position, we had a stipend
Yeah.
position in there, so we're just re-engaging in that because there's a need.
Okay, I just want to make sure we do what we need to do if that's required.
I think we'll be coming to you folks in February about how we can be creative about music and art and some other things. As we see some retirements and what it's going to look like moving forward to fiscal '23.
Right. Yeah, because I think setting the foundation, of course, right, at a young age and introducing things to kids and let them try it, and they may phase out. You know, I have children who one was a dancer and got to the high school and became an athlete, and that just naturally happens. As far as outreach and information to parents, if I would hope that we can do multi-platforms and media, because if it's just one flyer and a backpack, and they have a 2-home, if they come from a family of 2 homes, that backpack may go to one home and the other parent may not see it, and I just want to be sure we're really...
It'll go out through School Messenger, it'll go out, I'm sure when it goes out with School Messenger, it'll go out on Facebook and things of that nature. But, yeah, we'll make sure it gets promoted correctly.
Yeah, and lastly, just the high school numbers for fine arts and music, you know, with band Dondero is at 16 and chorus is 18, you know, beginner guitar is 13. So certainly I would hope we can continue to maintain, you know, this piece of the fine arts and just improve that. I do know someone personally in Mansfield, and their school population is similar to ours, 3,600 students. They have 19 staff for just their fine arts and their music and their marching band and their color guard. They have over 88 students involved in it. And we're not Mansfield, we're Whitman-Hanson certainly, but if we can do something more.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is defining, you know. I mean, I remember, you know, when you go to sometimes the band's bigger than you know, there's more spectators for the halftime band than there are for the game itself. So that would be wonderful if that happens.
Okay,
Pembroke,
thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Donna. I mean, I think as we delve into that related arts piece, it's really just having that full breadth of, you know, and being creative, like you said. You know, we have a lot of club orientation for freshmen, things like that. How do we do that at the elementary, middle school level? How do we do that? I think it's, I mean, the challenge I find, we talked a little bit about this, the challenge I find as a parent is kids go so deep instead of wide now, right? So I'm gonna do one activity, whether it's music or drama or a sport, and it's a 3-4 season, that's all they do. Which kind of makes it tough because you don't have that diversity of, you know, I'm gonna run track, I'm gonna play basketball, I'm gonna play an instrument. That's the other challenge we're gonna face, but definitely making the offering.
Who want to go down that path
Yeah.
and offer that opportunity.
I think to your point, you have to give them the opportunity and let them know it's there, or it won't happen. So, awesome. Good.
We'll go with that. Any other questions on enrollment, class size? Okay, I'm gonna move over to goals for this year. So I sent you a self-assessment, a little long-winded. I think the reason, I kind of piggybacked on last year's, so you're gonna see some similarities, but I think we did a lot of stuff last year. You know, it was a COVID year, we were hybrid. I wanted to explain that that was really hard for staff, it was really hard for administrators, it was really hard for kids to get adjustment, and we completed that. And we completed what was asked of us in central office and of me and as the district, and kept improving. And some of the stuff that I had put in from last year, like even as a goal about, one-to-one initiative, we've seen that. And I think in one respect, we were able to get some government money, and COVID was good in that way. We were able to get some grants, and we were able to get some money from Josh Cutler and Allison Sullivan. And that's still continuing to be a pipeline for us. But we had a pretty good year to get some things done for us, and creating, positive relationships with the association. We were able to go through a one-year rollover in a contract. Other districts have not. Other districts are in mediation. We were able to put in really good ventilation for the district when some districts were not. We were able to provide a pretty high-quality education to the students that wanted full remote last year by being creative. And it really came from parent feedback saying, this is what we want. And because this committee was supportive of me and my team, we were able to do that. So looking at this year, after last year, I came up with some goals, and some of the goals are going to piggyback on what we talked about this summer. The 4 standards are instructional leadership, family and community engagement, professional culture, management and operations. The areas are, professional practice, student learning, and district improvement. That's really what I do, but I say I'm making goals for the district, not just for Jeff, because what I do is really going to carry out through my central office, through my principals, through my teachers, to make sure that we're in a good spot. So goal number 1 for me, and again, these aren't in any order, is working with the school committee subcommittee on early childhood education to implement no-cost full-day K for the start of the school year. We prioritize that as a school committee. I don't see this getting off the ground without me focusing in on that this year. And that soup to nuts, from classroom space to finances to networking it out to the public to talking to parents who want that. So that's a goal for me to wrap that all up for us, to get that fiscally in the budget, but really get some feedback from parents that, who's going to buy into that? What does that mean? And I piggybacked on this. A couple of us have had some conversations about pre-K, and it's on the horizon. So looking at this to establish this will give us an opportunity to look at preschool in the future, if that becomes a mandate, if that's a suggestion, or if it's the right thing to do for kids. So this is a priority for us. The school committee has invested some time on this. I put this as a goal for me and for my team to make sure that we're moving forward on it. Number 2 is a piggyback, and this, you're probably going to see this until the middle school is either voted up or down. This is going to take a significant amount of my time, along with members of my team, to guide the subcommittee, the middle school building committee, forward. So last year we went into feasibility. We were able to get the funding for it. We established our team. Now we're going to get to the nuts and bolts with hiring a project manager in December. Part of that process is me with some subcommittee members interviewing, touring, going through a bunch of paperwork to make sure we get the right OPM, then hiring an architect, and then in the next, the feasibility piece of that will probably take another 12 to 18 months. So part of my goal is to work with those teams, provide, again, and I think, Dawn, you had mentioned this in the past about community outreach. This is when the community outreach is going to go forward, once we establish this architect and gather some information from the community. So a goal of mine is to be part of that committee and then get that out to the community. And that's going to be my management and operations and family and community pieces of those. Using the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's blueprint, implement a multi-tiered system of support for all students and a continuing of learning pre-K to 12. So this is MTSS. George and I took a team prior to COVID, and I think it was either in spring of 18 or fall of 19, out to Springfield to see what this is from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And it's basically setting up a system so that all kids can achieve. This isn't special education. We talked about the interventionists in the spring, and we brought them on board, but this is putting in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions for our students. And as this year goes through, I'll explain that more and what that looks like. And in either October or November, those interventionists are going to speak to you. But it's creating a process that struggling students can achieve more, Students who are on grade level can achieve more, but we're looking at interventions for all kids and putting forth a process in place for them to be successful. George, you want to just jump in a little bit about MTSS? This is a lead from him.
Sure. So MTSS is actually the federal law in 2014 under under ESSA. So basically what we're doing now is formalizing it. And all we're trying to do now is to say, wherever a child is at in their state of learning, we are saying, can we help? First of all, how do they learn? Can we help them to learn? If they struggle, what supports can they get? And I think the number one thing we have to remember is that it's for all students. So all students receive this level of learning. Some students receive this level of learning and more. And then some students receive even more. And that's when you hear about these interventionists and these tiered levels. But all MTSS is a multi-tiered system of support to give students what they need along their journey of education so that we can help them achieve the best that they can. We formalized it. So you're going to be hearing throughout the year things like the STAT process. You're going to be hearing things about our interim assessments and the data. When we started our interim assessments last year and we had the data, it was like, okay, here's the snapshot of what kids are, their weakness areas, and then we tried to say, okay, how can teachers help? Now we're formalizing that. We have teams going out into the schools. We have students who are placed in small groups, so they get some of that interventions during the school year within the course of the school day. You're going to find out that there'll be some paperwork coming out to talk about at the elementary school what's called a power block. Some people call it a WIN block, and that's about 30 minutes a day. And if it's called WIN, it's what I need. But a power block is that every student will be able to focus on their deficits or where they can excel during the course of the school day outside of the time used for the regular education that they're receiving. So it's a pretty exciting time. It's a time that we formalized it. Every district has it to some degree, but we're trying to say, how do we get better at it? How do we improve on it? And how do we keep it going? So that's what MTSS is really what we're doing.
So last year when we were talking about, you know, the interventionists, we had already looked at our district accommodation plan, and we really redid our district accommodation plan, which we're supposed to have by law, but was on an Apple IIe?
Yeah.
Done years ago. So we redid that, and on top of that, we wanted to make sure that we had something in place for all of our kids. Again, aligning with federal law, which the district had gone away from a little bit and had pieces of it. But this really formalizes it as one of my goals, to be able to present this to you in July and say, these are everything that we did. And also, and George and I had talked about this when we were doing budget, this isn't just because of COVID and because of learning loss, or that word that I don't like, is kids regressed. We should have this in place for all of our kids anyway. The district has never had a system of intervention in place for all of our students. It's either financial issues, whatever, but we want to make sure this is solidified. We have a formalized process so that 3 years from now, we still have a strong tiered system for all our kids. So that's another one of my goals that we'll put in place this year. The next one is really, we talked equity a little last year, and COVID and different things drew us away, but I really want to take a deep dive into equity, and it's the buzzword out there, but really what race, gender, sexual identity, academic ability is within our district. I want to look at our programs, making sure we have equitable programs for all of our kids, for our students, looking at our curriculum to make sure it's equitable for all of our kids, our program of studies, offering classes for all of our kids. I noticed when I used to teach, there was a women in history class at Situate. We don't have something like that there. That might be a source of equity for our students. Our hiring practices to make sure, and we've reached out to a couple of folks in DESE to help us to attract a variety of people to apply for jobs within Whitman-Hanson, and then promoting our future leaders. And one of the things we've already become involved in is a project out of DESE called Influence 100. We are one of the only district on the South Shore. There's about 20 districts that promotes 2 future leaders who might want to be a superintendent at some point. Dr. Jocelyn and Dr. Jones are 2 future leaders who are involved in that. And I'm actually going to send you out an invite. The Zoom introduction is next Friday. So I'll send you folks if you want to attend it. I don't know what it's going to be about, but George and I were interviewed by DESE to be accepted into this program, and they felt we were a very good district. with a broad range of where we want to be. So Dr. Jocelyn and Dr. Jones are in this. It's new for us. It's only been around for a couple of years, but it's really to get a more diverse population into the superintendency role, into leadership. What we're hoping to bring back from that is how to bring in different folks, people with diverse backgrounds to our community. I mentioned we have 30 English language learners students coming in. The face of Whitman-Hanson is changing. The demographic is changing, and we need to have like people in positions in our buildings to make sure that students feel good and colleagues feel good. So that's another goal that I have for this year. And then the last one is, and I put this on last year, it'll probably be on for forever. It's not a formalized goal, really communicate with students and parents. And I put students this year because I didn't get out to students last year and ask them what they thought. And our student leader today talked a little bit about student engagement and getting information. Parents in the community gather feedback specifically around ESSER 3, our COVID response and how that might shift or change, the Whitman Middle School building project, and current district and future programs. So the goal for me is to really try to get out, not only through survey, but actually get into a couple of town hall meetings, so to speak, at Hanson Middle, at Whitman Middle, not doing it monthly. I don't want to set if I don't get to one and one school feel shafted if I didn't get there. So I'm going to try to get out periodically starting in October, trying to do something once a month so that people can come. And it's not going to be a Q&A necessarily. I just want to gather feedback from folks. I don't want it to be necessarily just beat up the superintendent either, but I think it's important that I get some feedback from people in the communities about where we're at, and I can share that with the committee so that we can keep moving forward. So that's what I propose for this year. I think it's detailed, it's depth. I think they're manageable. I think we can take data from that and continue to grow as we move into the assessments that we did using our assessment systems of iReady and into reading this year. We'll share more information, and that will drive some of our fiscal ideas as we come up to February. But this is, I think, a good goal benchmark for me and my team to do this year. Questions? And I would need a vote on all of them, too.
Looking at the number, using DESE and the blueprint element for the tier system. Number one, you talk about interventionists, and we already have that staff on hand, right? So this doesn't involve you adding more staff in order to accomplish this. So just thought of that. And you know, with these goals, there's the acronym SMART, of course, and one piece is that it's measurable. So do you have an idea of, obviously, you want to see increased student achievement across all the boards, but a measurement, you know, how much, or have you given any thought to that on a percentage-wise, overall, what you're looking for? So like an increase, what would be? Yeah.
I think the setting, and it's funny because I went to a workshop this summer on setting those goals and making sure they're attainable for students. Exactly. You don't want to set up a classroom and say 80% of our students are going to achieve this, and the one child that can't either skews the numbers or has pressure. So I think we're going to look at benchmarks as we go. I think our first round of assessments, especially in K to 6, K to 8, around using those first tier assessments is going to drive where we want to go and what that looks like for our kids this year. So I don't have a set number to say as far as student achievement this year. I think that will come as we go. What I want to say now, just based on what we have from the state data, is we have room to improve in our MCAS scores from last year. I don't think it's unexpected, as MCAS was something that students didn't want to take last year, and I don't know if it took too seriously. I've looked at preliminary at the data. The data is going to be released on Friday. I know we didn't achieve where we should usually achieve, so it's an area of focus for this year. So I don't necessarily want to put a measurement today, but as we go forward, as I give you progress, I'll show you where we're at. Yeah, good.
But there's another question.
I just,
Hold on, Beth and then Hillary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Beth and then Hillary.
Just, Jeff, on when you were talking about meeting, you know, with community, like once in a while at the different schools and stuff, just a suggestion that if, you know, one of us or a couple of us want to attend with you, just in case, so that one of us is there too, and if we have the ability to be there, might be a good idea, good suggestion too, so that we can hear firsthand from the people and not just getting it Not that you wouldn't give
No,
us the
no, I
information,
understand.
I'm just
No,
saying,
that's-
it
that's
just,
fine. That-
sometimes to have an extra set of ears is
Absolutely.
nice to have, you know?
And that would be an open invite, and I don't think, Michelle, if I had a town hall at Whitman Middle School and six school committee members attended, would that be a quorum? Would I get into trouble? Or would that be okay, because it's not a school committee meeting?
No one's deliberating.
Okay, okay, that's great. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I was just gonna kind of add on to what Don was saying about the achievement for students. I think that it's hard to put a number, and because kids are not within our control, right? We're not, and when I say we, I mean educators, right? They're not a product necessarily that we're pushing out. So if we could see, like, when I'm looking at this goal, I see a multi-tiered system. So to me, like, what is a multi-tiered system, right? So part of that goal, it might not be numbers and statistics. It might be like, here are the tiered, right? So we do have the remediation, but what are we doing for our higher achieving learners? And how are we tracking that data in that way? Because it is very, as an educator, it's really hard to put all your eggs in one basket when we're looking at the MCAS scores, because everyone's going to look at them, and I can't sit down and take the test for the kids, and so it's really hard to do, and I would hate for you to be evaluated on that you can't control. So
Thanks, good.
So I think what I was going to say combines sort of both. So measurable and attainable. So that's two of the ones in the SMART goal. So I think one of the things we'd like to show, and in order for Jeff to execute his goal properly, would be what are the systems, what are the benchmarks that we are going to employ this year as the system builds. For example, I can already tell you that what looks like elementary is going to look a little bit different at the secondary level. And within the secondary level, the middle school already has some pieces that are in place that, yes, need to be ironed out better than the high school. So the high school is more like a research piece to say, what can they do with their schedule next year? So there are pieces that will definitely be able to show progress. There are pieces that will definitely be able to show what's attainable and reasonable. And then when all of that is settled, then I think it becomes, we have all these things in place. What are the benchmarks and the increments for our students that are reasonable? So I do think that we'll definitely be able to show benchmarks, but I think it's more going to be this year as the process moves forward.
So question and comment. So question, how often do you plan, what are you thinking in terms of giving updates against your goals? Like how often do you think you'll do that over the course of this year?
So I liked, last year, we added something monthly about where we were at. So, again, my predecessor used to say, in goal number one, this is where, I like to just infuse it into the agenda and have Michelle mark it off. But we can just say, hey, look, and we're looking at October already, giving an update on where we're at with this MTSS goal. I don't know in October if I'm going to have anything on the equity piece. So I'd like to give you something monthly as we prepare, as we go through this. So by January, I can give you a mid-year report, formalized mid-year report where we're at, but you'll have bits and pieces as we go.
So, this isn't something we've discussed, you and I, but in terms of just a general comment for the committee, I think where I struggle with the SMART goal process, because I've used those a lot, on a personal note, I'm not convinced they work well. Because what I find is folks hyper-focus on the components, and you miss, these are meant to be strategic, broader objectives, and you miss kind of the direction you're going. So for example, we're going to increase this by 2.2%, and it might, you might come up with a situation through something that changes where it's like, hey, no, you know what? We should forget about doing that. We should go do this because this is really going to help kids. But no, we can't do that because the goal says we're going to increase this by 2.2%. So I like kind of this hybrid approach of the goals are a little broad, but we can't just, for the first time in, get a progress update at the very end of the year. So if you're going to infuse consistent feedback monthly, and we can even leave it open to the committee, we can leave it as a kind of a standard, just goals if anything, and that can be a two-way street. It can be feedback from the committee on goals, like, hey, Beth can say, I attended that meeting, Jeff, and I heard this, this, and this. Can we look at that? Then it kind of makes it more of an iterative, real-time, effective process, opposed to we're just going to put something on a piece of paper, we're not going to talk about it, and then we're going to get to the end of the year and it's we check the boxes. It's not as meaningful. So I kind of like the broad, as long as there's a two-way street of feedback, both you're giving us and I think us giving you. So again, we don't get to the end of the year and you're like, scrambling. Really, Chris? You had an issue with something I did in November, and you're telling me in June. So maybe if we can you know,
good-
if the
I'm very
committee
good with that.
supports that, I think we should probably have something on there. It doesn't mean we have to talk about it every month,
Mm-hmm.
but it can just be goals and feedback. It can be feedback from the superintendent, it can be feedback from the committee, it can be feedback from the public if they want to infuse it in public comment. Again, I'd rather hear it then than
Absolutely.
later, so,
No issues here.
okay. Any other discussion before we, yeah?
Thank you. This is helpful because certainly when it comes time for us to evaluate you, I want to be sure that I'm doing it in tune with what we're talking about, which is the reason for this right now. So, and clarifying, you know, what we're evaluating on. I think in some instances it is okay to be specific and then it can change and it can be explainable. That happens a lot in my line of work too. You know, you set a budget, you have a forecast, it changes, it's explainable for X, Y, Z reason. But this, you know, this is something that, it being broad, I appreciate that as well because the nature of education is such. I'd like a little more understanding on the next page, the deep dive into the equity. And again, I wrote that down, exactly that broad. You know, this is broad. I don't know, I mean, I think you did explain it as far as looking into programs for our students and just across the board. So do you have sort of expectations on maybe making suggestions and recommendations for changes to classes?
That's, we'd like to see, and
Yeah.
we're going to consult with either other districts, DESI, or a potential consultant to kind of look at what we have, so that we're getting an outsider's look at what do you offer, what should we be offering as far as classroom classes. I'm also making sure that we have an evolving population, and we have to recognize that, and we haven't done that. So I want to, again, looking at this very in a broad way, but specifically what other districts have done to do that, and again, looking at a consulting firm potentially to help us along with that. It's not like we're going to rehaul our curriculum. I know there's a lot of information out there. You do this equity thing and you're going to do all, we need to see what we're doing and making sure that kids feel comfortable in our classes and we're servicing all types of students. You want to add something?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we're going to have to do is define the piece of equity. There are multiple pieces that people associate with the term equity. So we have to make sure we do that. One of the things we're doing internally is, it's actually out of DESI, and it's a student learning experiences report.
Yeah.
It's come out now for 3 to 4 years, but what happens is that they look at not only the aggregate of all the students, but then they look at broken down by subgroups, and then they compare those to a student learning experience. And a student learning experience is defined by every time a child or a student interacts with a teacher. Now, you take all of those, and then you break it into years of experience and the interactions between that child and that teacher, effectiveness in the evaluation between that child and that teacher. You break it down to attendance, and you also break it down to what's called educator effectiveness. So when you take all of those things, you get these ratios, and they measure the whole, all students, and then they break down each subgroup. So your EL population, your students with disabilities populations, and then all the subgroups are broken down. And we've done, sometimes in years we've done well, sometimes in years we haven't done well. But that's one of the things in which we have to do for the state, and it's called just an equity audit based on a student learning experience report. So we'll be sharing some of those things with you as we try this year to fix some of those pieces that we don't fix. Some you can't fix, just like you said, Dawn, it's a forecast and the forecast changes, because sometimes the reason why we move on from a teacher and we bring in a brand new teacher thus creates a problem because kids have a teacher with less than 3 years experience. So some of that you can't go through, but I think the definition of the word equity and then how it impacts the different things that Jeff talked about and then how it impacts student learning is something we'll describe.
Yeah, and I think just for the public record, it's really important to just not read, and this is not for the committee, not just read the slide and the buzzword, but actually listen to what we just talked about. Because I think the way you described it, Jeff, in terms of what you want to understand and how you want to move us forward, that's very relevant. So I would caution the public, if you're just tuning in and you see us, listen to what he said in terms of what he wants to do and what we need to do and why we need to do it. That's much more relevant than just looking at a word and being like, hey, wait a second, let me react to it. So listen to the words, not just the word, I think would be helpful. Thank you. So we're at a place where if there aren't any other questions, we probably should look at a motion to vote these.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? That was some good discussion. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstaining? Great. Unanimous. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. If we can achieve these, we're gonna be in a really good spot. I'm gonna need your help. I'm gonna need the public's help, and, because some of this is financial, but it'll give us an introspective look at what we do here over the next couple of years. So ESSER 3, or ESSER, just an update on ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. As you know, we've gotten some money from the Fed. ESSER 1, we were awarded $292,273, which we've expended $173 with a balance of $100 in ESSER 1. That was really the first COVID, hey, this is your little stimulus. ESSER 2, we were awarded $1,001,704. We've expended $5,292.66, leaving us a balance of $996,411.34. So that's there right now, because I'm still outstanding, John, 1 point something million in CARES. So we thought ESSER 2 might have been used to cover some of our CARES money. We put in a lot in CARES, so we hadn't had to dive into ESSER 2. When I was talking budget last year, ESSER 3 was just coming out without any parameters. So we were looking at CARES not covering some of our expenses and using ESSER 2 money. We didn't use that yet, and we're feeling pretty sure, 98%, that we're going to get all the CARES money. So we're going to be able to use this ESSER 2 money in fiscal 22 and fiscal 23. ESSER 3 has been awarded, but we haven't applied for. ESSER 3, the award is $2.314697. We haven't expended, we haven't applied. The grant is due on October 4th. And one of the pieces, this is hot off the presses, literally from yesterday at 5 o'clock, was the need survey to the community. And you're going to see, and I really haven't been able to break it down because I just got this morning, what the community sees as our needs. And we will put this all into the grant, and then over the next 3 years, it's really a 1-year grant with an extension of year 2, year 3. And the way it's written right now is it has to be expended, the total amount of your allotment has to be expended by September 30th, 2024. We're still trying to clarify if it's fiscal, if it just has to be encumbered by 2024, or by September 30th, 2024, or if it just has to be pulled, or if it has to be spent, done by September 2024. When I presented the budget in February, we were taking some ESSER 3 money from that allotment. We might not have to do that because we still have ESSER 2 money. But unfair, and I want to say it's unfairly, in June we found out that we had to jump through some more hoops than we had to do for ESSER 1 or ESSER 2. So the grant, as it was written, when they said, oh, Fed money's coming to you, you get 2.3, do what you want, there's a couple other different things that George, as our grant writer right now, has to put in for the October 4th. Thus the ESSER survey, thus some community engagement, but we haven't tapped into this yet. There are some wide range things that we can look at using ESSER 3 money. It's for students, yes. Can it be used in buildings? Yes. It can't be just a substitute for teacher raises, for superintendent raises. It has to be for program or for people to put in that program. Can we improve air conditioning? Yes, that's part of that. Can we improve playgrounds? Potentially. Can we improve roads? I'm not sure. That was a question that came up due to COVID, due to this. So working through this survey, seeing where some of the priorities are, they will be the priorities within the grant. But I think the questions we asked were broad enough that when we write the grant, we can cover some of those things. And then I will bring that to the committee and say, how do you want to allocate it for FY23? How do you want to allocate it for FY24? These are, again, one-time monies. This isn't something that we can say, hey, look, we're going to build a robust foreign language program in the middle school and hire 8 teachers, because FY25 we might not be able to do that. So we have to be very careful how we structure our finances going forward. On the positive side, very excited that we didn't really have to dig into ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, so we have some money. But it doesn't necessarily take away, and this is going to be the hard piece, take away from the responsibilities of the 2 towns to fund our budget, because it's one-time money. So it might be some improvements in after-school programs, it might be some buses for after-school activities or help sessions, it might be summer programs. But it can't be something to say, hey, look, again, foreign language, we would put it in our budget this year, but ESSER can take care of it next year. So we have to be very careful about that. And we'll report out as John closes the books at the end of this month, and we still haven't gotten the official closure yet. In October, we'll talk about where we are financially up to date and how some of the ESSER funds might be being used this year in some of the thought processes from February when we approved that budget. So I know we looked at our interventionist using ESSER 3 again. I don't know if we're going to be using ESSER 3, it might be ESSER 2. But we'll be clear and transparent about how those funds are being expended. So any questions on this? It's a flow, again. We were surprised when we presented our budget in February, March, and April. Our budget was approved at town meeting, and then we got the notice from the Fed saying, these are some of the stipulations around ESSER 3. And a lot of us said that would have been great to tell us back in May before town meeting. But some districts are putting in air conditioning. They're putting in new ventilation systems. That can be appropriated through ESSER, those one-time funds. So we'll dig in deeper as we go through, but this is the year-to-date as we are with our expenditures.
Question? Steve and then Don.
Just beat you by a half second.
You're quick there,
On the
Mr.
draw.
Boyce.
Jeff, we were talking earlier in our facility meeting about a lot of grants out there. Is anything correlating basically to what we could use? I mean, if they're out there, what is it like? Is it more defined to certain things? We're talking a little bit about COVID money and ESSERs and so forth, but I know you mentioned there's a lot of grants out there.
So this is a grant from the Fed, but there are still, and I don't want to go too off base, but I did mention playgrounds here a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more. But we talked about hitting up both our our state representatives, Cutler and Sullivan, about state monies. So those are some of the grants. There's still federal money and state money out there that will be looking to, offset COVID. And the big ticket items right now that are allocated to both Whitman and Hanson from the Plymouth County, we still haven't gotten back. So I'm still very hesitant to say I have a balance of $900,000 in ESSER 2, because if Plymouth County only gives us $300,000 and says your $1 million which covered remote teaching isn't covered from us, that's where the ESSER 2 balance is going to be. And then again, John will explain a little bit more in October where we're at, because this was a very difficult, weird year that we're still waiting on reimbursements from Plymouth County for expenditures that we did last year.
Thank you.
And then Don.
So around budget time, we talked about using ESSER for interventionists during the school year. Looking at the DESE document, it does talk about with the grant that the district will use 20% set aside for loss of instructional time, but it simply mentions summer learning, summer enrichment, and extended day after-school programs or extended school year programs. So 20% of the 2.3 million would be 450,000. So with the grant application, does this committee need to approve how that grant is applied and how that 20% is identified?
So in the application, no, we just, the requirement of the funding has to be 20% over that lifetime of the grant. So if it's 2.3, and I'll trust your numbers, we then have to come up with those programs, because that's the amount that they're committed to. We've committed to saying that it's going to be an after-school program. We haven't defined that yet, because again, we're looking at, we're talking in December about those summer opportunities. Now we have some funding to be more creative with. And parents have said summer opportunities and after-school opportunities. The shot across my bow about after-school activities now is I don't have any buses to get kids home for if they're staying for extra help or for a session after school. So the committee doesn't have to do that, because that's just going to be a grant that we write. What we will do is report out and what we're going to allocate those funds for. So again, that 20%, when we talked about in February, March, and April, that was not in the original statement here, use that money. That was, again, here you go, if you want this, this is what you want to do. Again, I think we can use it for improving and having the extended school day and summer experience better for our kids, using some of this money.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a question from the gallery?
Sure, as long as it's brief.
Hi, John Galvin, High Street, Whitman. Last year, right before town meetings, this committee certified a new budget in which it took $750,000 out of the assessments for the town and was going, from my understanding, was going to use extra money to fund a special team of interventionalists to, because there was so much, everybody was coming back from, from being remote and all of that. So was that $750,000 that the district took out of that and funded themselves coming from the ESSER money? And my second question would be, it was also my understanding that you were planning to use ESSER to pay for that $750,000 again next year, because the towns wouldn't be able to handle that since that was one-time money. So is that still in the plan?
You're correct in both spots. I just don't know if it's ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 at this point.
So right there, that's $1.5 million of the, say, 3.2 that you have available.
That's correct.
Okay, so, and then would that team continue on to a year 3?
Potentially.
So that's now eating up all of your ESSER 3 money right there, the 2.1 million. So actually it would be more than that, so, no, right around there, so, okay. I just
Correct.
wanted to clarify, because,
Yep, that's a good clarifying question, but
all right, thank you.
at the point when we presented the budget, the budget doesn't include, the assessment to the towns don't include those interventionists at this point.
All right, and that, the plan is to use ESSER to,
As long as we have that, correct.
all right, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll stay on the
Thanks.
financial train, I guess,
Yep.
as we
Yep.
move on to Mr. Sandbrook. John?
Is that right?
Thank you. So the fiscal year 22 monthly report through August looks like this. It's this document here. Just really kind of too early to see any trends yet. It's only the second month. The encumbrances from fiscal year 21 are not on this report yet because I transferred the balances on September 1st. So this is run as with August 31st date on it. So it'll be on the next September report that I give you every month here. And just again, in this report, there's a column that says transfers and adjustments. That's where the encumbrances will be from fiscal year 21, and it will be there for next month's report. And we've already had a $180,349 budget overrun in the district-wide insurance employee benefits retirement line item. Again, that's page 33. I have it highlighted here. The budget was $3,065,598, and the year-to-date actual is $3,145,947. Sorry. So that's related to a 9.2% increase in retirement payments to both Plymouth County Retirement and in payments to the Group Insurance Commission for our retired teachers through Mass Teachers Retirement System. These large increases weren't budgeted for fiscal year 22. So by the end of the year, there will be some sort of budget transfer needed in order to cover this deficit, because this is a deficit like we did last meeting where you voted for those things. So at some point, there'll be a transfer to cover that. Then I'll be distributing this report to you monthly from now on, and I do look forward to working with the budget subcommittee, so the committee set up last meeting, work on how best to present the data to the committee to try to get it out, so I don't give you too much, I don't give you not enough. I don't know the level that you want to get. I can go to the nth, or I can stay up high, whatever you want to do. I'm looking forward to working with that committee. And just on a year-end closeout status for fiscal year 21, like I said earlier in the meeting, the fiscal year 21 books are closed. I submitted the balance sheet to the Department of Revenue a week ago on Wednesday, September 8th. The certification of excess and deficiency is currently pending with them. Whenever they get to us and decide to go through the balance sheet is when it will be done. We should have it for the next meeting, the official excess and deficiency number. As soon as they certify the fiscal year 21 balance sheet, meaning the Department of Revenue, I'll compile and distribute several reports for discussion for the October meeting. And just an end of the year report update. The deadline for the report is October 1st. By the end of the week, this week, I will have punched in all the raw data into the report. Then I'll have the rest of the month to try to fine tune the data, make sure it's correct, try to work out there's some edits on there that we need to go through and explain. But barring any unforeseen catastrophe, I'll meet the state's October 1st deadline for the end of the year report. And that was it. Thank you.
Any questions from John? Question from Sean? Sure.
Just a quick request.
And if you could just do your name and address.
Sean Kane,
We
31
know,
Forest.
but everyone else.
Excuse me?
I said, we know who you are, but for everyone else watching.
Sean Kane, 31 Forest Street, Whitman. Could I get a copy of the end of year report, please?
Yeah. Once it's up.
Yeah, next week or when?
Well, it'll be October 1st is what I'm going to send in, and then they'll go through it and take a look at it, but I can certainly give you a copy.
So maybe we can just, if there's a desire for it, perhaps we can just post it on the website, right?
Is it usually posted somewhere?
From the department, from DESI usually has it.
Okay.
Or we can direct to the DESI website,
Okay.
put a link. So, great, happy to do that. Anyone else? Okay. Moving along, where are we?
You're up 9.
Okay, contract, yes. So actually, for the committee, we're going to pass over this one tonight. So the school committee, as you're aware, had met in executive session on this item specifically. However, there was a piece of information on the process that we had talked about in executive session that was incorrect in terms of who signed what. So we will need to convene an executive session just to make sure that everyone's clear on that. And so what I'd like to do is have an executive session on Monday at 6:30. Hopefully, I'm looking at some nodding heads, hopefully. Monday, 6:30 here. It'll be, I would anticipate it will not be long.
You good?
Yeah. We have enough for a quorum. Michelle's not good, but what about everyone else? Okay, so we're gonna plan on
I might
it.
be 5 minutes after. I'll try to end soccer practice
Yep.
early.
Yep, so we'll do that. And then the anticipation would be to put that back on the agenda. I think it's just important for the school committee, if we share some information, it needs to be accurate. I want you all to have accurate information, so we will do that. And then moving on, I think you want to do capital items next?
Yes, please. So we met as a subcommittee, capital subcommittee, and capital subcommittee, and I put my notes away. Reviewed the capital matrix, and I'm going to drop into the, I want to say Dropbox all the time. Michelle's going to yell at me. It's the Google Drive, but the capital matrix for you folks to look at. And it really looks like a 5-year matrix. We put everything that we need over time. And on the capital matrix, I've highlighted in red for you to see. But tonight specifically, I presented to the school committee 7 items that we feel as the district is a capital priority. Mike, do you want to talk about this at all, or do you want me to?
No, you can do it, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So we put out there, and one of the things I share with the committee is, we just talked about ESSER money. I know there's federal money out there as well for both communities. And I'm not saying both communities are putting it all into capital, but there may be some opportunity for them to have additional capital expenses moving forward. The other reason we're talking capital in September is Whitman last year formed a capital committee. Maybe they had a capital committee before that, but really formalized the process and asked the regional school district to present their capital items in a priority fashion to the capital committee by October 1st. I did speak with Lincoln Heineman, who's the town administrator, and asked him if there was any specific format. That capital committee hasn't met yet this year or since April. I know Mr. Jones is our liaison. Mr. Small is the elected member or appointed member by the selectmen to that committee. I told Mr. Heineman that this was the last school committee prior to October, so we were going to do our best to itemize 7 or our priorities, or what we think our priorities are, to that capital committee. This doesn't mean, I think, this is the end process for this school committee, because this isn't necessarily going on the town warrant. I think it's the first step for the towns to see what our priorities are, and then kind of go back and forth what their available funds are. They might come back to our capital committee through, or our facilities committee through Mike or through Fred to say, can you prioritize because we can't afford X, Y, and Z. Because I think on our end right now, we're kind of shooting it out there to see what might be available in our capital plan. So we prioritize 7 items. the facility subcommittee voted unanimously to support those, and I would ask the school committee to support these as well. Ask some questions, but this isn't a binding piece to necessarily go to town meeting. This is very early to put it on the warrant. So our first is, we all know that we talked about our tech plan, and we're estimating, after the presentation you saw, is a $1.2 million expense as a district expense for technology. That would be a 60-40 split between the two communities. Second item that we talked about, and these aren't in any particular order, purchasing 2 new vehicles at $45,000 apiece for our facilities operations department for a total of $90,000, again, split 2 ways between the communities. Another priority, both Duval and Conley playgrounds are end of life, and we estimate a $200,000 each, or $400,000 total for the 2 playgrounds, both Duval and Conley, to be a Whitman-only expense for capital. Pardon the language, but the company we use is called the Big Ass Fan Company. Conley had put in a request for fan purchases for their gymnasium and their cafeteria to the tune of $45,000. It was on the capital plan last year. It got bumped, but that will be a $45,000 Whitman-only expense. The rooftop unit and/or chiller for the high school is challenged, and it's a $100,000 expense to repair, replace, and that's a split between the two communities of $100,000. And the fire panel / fire system devices, it's 2 different items, but they kind of can't go one without the other. The fire panel is $74,000 split 2 ways, and the fire system devices, which are the smokes, the detectors, is $92,000 split both ways. Those are the 7 items that we'd like to produce for October for both communities from the school committee, to see if we can begin that discussion as our priorities. Those committees might kick it back and say there's no way we can afford 1.2. Is there pieces of that? But I think it's the opportunity for us to share what we need. And we've been told before, we don't share what we need till it's too late, so we're going to share early what we need and have both committees. And Mike knows that there's a Hanson committee as well now, and we can represent. They can come to us. We can go through the capital matrix with them if needed. And again, we're going to drop into the Google Drive the official capital matrix that we have. I wanted the subcommittee to see it first and kind of give it an eyeball before I sent it to the committee. George is really operations as well, so
just a point of order for what you said, so we're clear. This is only the portion that's for Whitman right now, correct? Because the Hanson portion was not what we discussed at our meeting, except for the shared item.
For the Share Act, right.
Okay, so this is what would be needed with the new creation of the new system that we're a part of in Whitman for October to begin the process for hopefully May town meeting.
So before you leave, so do we have a time? What are you thinking? When do you anticipate we would have the Hanson items?
So
hopefully for next.
When are they needed? Because we can.
Meeting?
Do you know when Hanson is going to want the capital items?
Well, no. I think when could we have it is my question.
We could have a next meeting,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think, and then what I think we need to do is one of the things we committed to, we need to reach out to that capital committee in Hanson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I did.
okay, you've already done, so, okay, so you've already, excellent. So you've already, even better. So you've already established that they'll be getting something from us. Have they given you a time frame that they need it? Okay, so, but if we do it over the next meeting or 2,
Oh, fine, yeah.
they should be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
They
Fantastic.
don't have an October 1st deadline.
Yes.
So these 7 things, just so you know, that Jeff just explained, are the shared 60/40 costs for the high school pieces, and then the Whitman-only pieces.
High
And then
school
this would-
and district.
And district, excuse me, and then this would be forwarded to the Whitman folks.
So we're basically making a recommendation to the Whitman Capital Committee
Yes.
from the school committee, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So could we entertain a motion to that? Could I entertain a motion to that effect?
Motion to move forward the capital priority plan for FY 23 Whitman.
Great. Second. Any discussion? Yes, no, I'm sorry.
Does the 1.2 million technology include a piece of that, which included the projector for the Performing Arts Center at the high school? That was like
I
in
don't
the
think-
back of the book. It was
Yeah,
the last.
Does the 1.2 piece, and I know you're more proficient in what it is, Does it include the projector for the pack?
No, at this time it does not. It includes the back end, which is needed to support not only our wired structure for technology, but also our wireless structure for technology. It's things like at every individual, well, there's a hub here, so we replace some of the brain that houses all of our tech, and then it would be the individual closets at the schools to do it. From there would be the wiring that needs to go in for the new wireless access points, because over 240 of them are out of date, which is what you all log into wirelessly. So it's really the guts to support hardwired technology and wireless technology. The AV equipment that you mentioned is a separate piece, but it is not included in that 1.2 million.
Okay. Let's check. And,
Sorry.
and if I may just add some feedback on the playground. I look back and remember some former capital items that Whitman has funded for the district and things that have been end of life here at the high school. The school is 16 years old now, built in 2005 or opened, and we have addressed the turf field for safety reasons, and towns have funded that, and the track was end of life, and we had the tennis courts in 2016. The turf was 2017. We've addressed other safety issues as a town for things like card access for the schools and cameras and thumb latches. We've addressed the wheelchair ramps. So I hope that residents of the town of Whitman and town officials would see a playground not just as a play structure but a safety issue. It was built in 2000. So in comparison to these other capital items we funded, which were end of life, that were built with this school in 2005 or later, this playground is from 2000. And I would encourage anyone to go visit the playground, see equipment that is missing, it's gone, and rusted elements and so forth. So it does become a safety issue. I just wanted to share some of that feedback and experience that I've had. I believe there were inspection reports done of all the playgrounds.
Inspection reports were done in November of 2020, and the person, I want to say the woman that is coming back out on the 21st to redo and see, because Ernie made some repairs, facilities made some repairs to make sure that we don't have any outstanding major safety issues.
Would we be able to get a copy of the Conley one? I know I have seen Duval, but would that be possible? To share that?
We'll drop that, all of them into the...
And Indian had a safety issue as well.
Yeah, we'll drop it into the Google Drive.
Okay.
Should those, I'm sorry to feedback, but should those safety reports be things that are sent to the capital matrix people in Whitman so that they can see it too? Or is that overreach? Is that overreach?
Well,
I don't know if that's overreach.
So that's what I'm waiting to hear from Whitman, what they actually want.
Okay.
And I assume there's going to have a template, and we're going to be able to fill in the gaps of the template about need and then justify those.
Yeah.
I just don't have that yet, and Lincoln said it was in process.
Right. I mean, I think if we're going to make the recommendation, I don't think it's a moot point for us to see it, but we're making the recommendation, and they're ultimately the ones who are going to put it on there or not. So it might be good for them to have that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the more information, the better. Certainly for us and for them, so we can do that. Any other discussion before we move to the vote on that recommendation? Everyone's good? All right, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, unanimous, Michelle.
So building use during COVID, we shut down. We didn't take any reservations for any building use. We're at a point now we can start taking reservations for dance companies, for graduations, outside vendors. They've been asking. We're following the state mandates as far as masking. They would have to mask. They would have to come up with potentially a way for them to close contact. But I think we're at a point, if the school committee approves, we can open up our district to outside vendors. We're in a spot.
Do you need a vote on that?
I do, because we voted to close.
So moved. Okay, second?
Second.
So the motion is to open up the buildings to outside vendors. David was, and I think Hillary beat whoever first.
Want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that while this is a good thing, I mean, there still are ramifications during this pandemic, so there will be some things that might have to be put in place that people will have to adhere to a little bit further than maybe when we had it pre-COVID. So I think that's just important for those people who might be returning customers or might be wanting to use the inside facilities.
Same thing with our costs. Our costs we're going to incur if we have to clean a little bit more deep, not deep clean, but clean up after folks, make sure we have hand sanitizer, masks available, things like that.
Right. And I think it's also important, though, that the close contact aspect is not the responsibility of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District for an outside vendor. So if they have to incur more costs for nursing, security, face mask police, that's sort of up to them.
Mike?
Would this include the track inside?
The indoor track?
This
Yeah.
could potentially be the indoor track also,
track.
yes.
Just opening it up again to the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah, that is not necessarily as a result. That's just closed because all events are closed, but that's not a rental. That's just a nicety for the townspeople.
And do we have any existing restrictions for like the town sports leagues in terms of how they're using the buildings, or are we kind of moved past that already? In terms of like whether it's basketball or whoever's using indoor facilities, do we have any restrictions for them right now, or are they able?
No, there are indoor, well, there are guidelines that were set forth by like the committee that works with all recreational sports that they follow. Barb Rogers contacted those people. But there are no specific set guidelines right now for that.
So they're able to use it just under new guidelines.
Yeah,
So at this
correct.
point, we've opened it up. There's no,
Yes. Yeah,
there's
we go-
no
yeah.
restriction for any of the
We're
town.
outside for town sports, we're inside for our own sports or sports that our students play.
Okay.
This would now be to open it up
For everyone.
as a rental for
Correct.
outside agencies to be able to book mostly the Performing Arts Center.
Okay. Sorry, there was a question somewhere over here, maybe.
I had a question, but is it our responsibility to provide the hand sanitizer and the mask?
We'll just have the hand sanitizer here, and if it's an extra cost for, if we have a dance company here, and it's gonna be cheaper, but I'm just saying that if we have to refill those things twice or 3 times, it's not a district expense.
Got
you
it.
know.
Yeah.
I would say we're gonna throw a box of masks out there just in case, to make sure it's safe, and that's, again, it's a COVID expense, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
But it might be a custodial cost, you
Right.
know, it might be a custodial cost, I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Does the mask mandate in school buildings count, like,
Yes.
Yes.
apply? Okay.
So and
Right,
that's the
even
thing.
if it's at 7
That's
o'clock
why
at
we're
night,
here
and it's a
tonight.
youth basketball
Right.
practice?
Correct.
Right, okay,
A mask mandate is in effect for all
Yeah.
school buildings 24/7,
okay.
as of now,
Right.
subject to change.
Right.
We'll see what that 80% looks
I
like
know,
for
I know.
non-related school events. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we had some discussion. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Unanimous. All right, where are we?
We have surplus.
Surplus. Okay, it's this one right here, the
Yes.
rugs?
Yep.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to declare some end-of-life rugs as surplus. So the request is coming from Tricia Collins to dispose of 5 Center Time rugs from the preschool academy that are at their end of life. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second. Over here, great. Sorry, I almost seconded myself. I can do that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great, unanimous. Yeah.
I don't want to be the extender, I'm sorry, trust me. I just want everybody to know that we have had multiple things come to this group as far as surplus. And with COVID and putting everything in the crates last year and cleaning out classrooms, we still have things such as older textbooks. We still have things that were declared surplus last year that we have yet to get rid of. They've all been declared. I just want to let you folks know that we have a process that we're ready to go to get rid of some of this stuff so we can incur some more storage space, but there are not, everything that will go out has already been approved by this committee.
So if we drive by and we see the trucks and the dumpsters, none of us should worry, it's already, okay.
You've already graced it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, facility subcommittee, subcommittee reports, facility subcommittee, Mike, anything further to add? And Jeff, I guess I'd look at you on
Sure.
Whitman Middle School building.
So we met yesterday as a building committee and approved all the changes that were recommended by the MSBA in our recent most RFS, request for service, for an operations project manager. The committee approved those. We sent the document to MSBA today for their final approval. And if they say we're good to go, the Whitman Middle School Building Committee will meet next Tuesday to officially vote it in and then start the process for an OPM.
Great. And I believe the policy subcommittee may have met, but they met after we published the agenda, so we'll make sure we have a report next time. And then the budget subcommittee, so I think that's David, Steve, and I. Don't go anywhere. Let's see if we can maybe schedule our first meeting before you take off tonight, and we'll include John in that process. And our next meeting will be October 13th.
Monday,
We have Monday for an
Monday.
executive session.
And
Executive
sorry,
session.
and thank you very much. And now we have Monday, this Monday upcoming, the 20, what day is that?
20th.
20th, thank you, at 6:30 PM.
6:30.
6:30 here. That will be the only item on the agenda, just an executive session.
And I cannot go.
Yep, no worries, I understand. Okay, that having been said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, so we got Steve and David. All those in favor? Aye, great. Unanimous. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
2 hours, Chris.